My name is Pastor Jeff Woods, and tonight I don't have so much of a sermon preach. I'm just going to share some of my thoughts with you. I want you to come join me as we think for a little bit. We are living in a time when everyone is talking about anti-Semitism. In Christian churches, that's the most awful thing in the world, and preachers preach against it. People talk against it. They say this is the number one problem. In the early church, of course, you never heard the word anti-Semitism or anti-Semite in the early church. They were always talking about antichrists, something you never hear anymore. All you hear is anti-Semites. And antichrist were the unbelieving Jews who were opposed to Jesus Christ in the early church, and many of them today. Not all Jews, and it's sad that you always have to stop and explain yourselves. You say, I'm not against the race. I'm not against all Jews. I am against the system of Zionism, and I am against the system of Judaism and also globalism. But I'm not against the race. So come on. And like I said, it's sad I even have to bring that up. Anyone has to bring that up. I want to talk about anti-Semitism a little bit. We're living in a time when all across Europe, if you say anything against the Holocaust, if you even question the Holocaust, you can spend years and years in what I call the dungeon. You go to prison. And Christians, I don't think, really have a problem with that. They say, well, someone's anti-Semitic. I don't know, they don't talk about that a lot, but a man by the name of Ernst Zundel spent, I believe, 7 years in prison. He didn't kill anybody, didn't shoot anybody, didn't rob anybody. He broke none of God's laws. He broke none of the laws of the land of any nation, of the laws of the conscience. He hurt no one. And many Christians are talking about that. So I'm going to talk about anti-Semitism. Again, the word anti-Semitism, that's a strange word. Oddest thing I've ever heard of. Anti-Semitic. You hear that all the time. You never hear any Christians ever use the word antichrist in reference to the spirit of antichrist that John talked about. John said, now there are many antichrists, and there were the Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, and all of their followers in Israel hated Jesus Christ and were fighting against the idea of Jesus Christ because they said, we are the blessings to the nations. We are in the place of Jesus Christ. And that's the spirit of Antichrist. And you never hear anybody talk about Antichrist, ever. You can talk all you want about anti-Semitics. Because these people have put themselves in the place of Christ. So along the lines of anti-Semitism, we show you a few videos here. Because we're in a dangerous time. Let me just say this. People all over YouTube are losing their channels. I'll probably lose mine real soon. I'm looking. Censorship is everywhere. Christians are calling for censorship. Christians are going against the Constitution. Christians are speaking out against the natural laws that God has put upon the hearts of men. Christians are speaking out against everything good and holy and righteous. Because they're starting to talk about anti-Semitism. We need to put a stop to anti-Semitism. Well, they sound like a bunch of communists. I want to show you something here. There he is, John Hagee. Not a theological heavyweight by any stretch of the imagination. He's like many preachers today. He just preaches a little here, a little there, a lot of emotion. Pulls a little verse out of context here, pulls a little verse out of context there. Not real deep. into the things of God. But I want you to listen to him.
I have said it before and will say it again. If a line has to be drawn, then draw the line around both Christians and Jews, because we are one and we are together, and we will work to snuff out the poison of anti-Semitism from the veins of the United States of America.
He gets a standing ovation for that. Look at that. Look at that. I want you to keep that in mind. And I want you to listen to Vladimir Lenin, a communist, saying the exact same thing that John Hagee was saying. And you got to remember that Russian communism was formed by the Bolsheviks. Vast majority of Bolsheviks were Jews. We would say unbelieving Jews. And Russia ran in its first communistic days. It wasn't Russians at all that took over Russia. These were many times outsiders. These were people that had no allegiance really to Russia. These were vast majority of them unbelieving Jews. We can look at the head of the Red Army, Trotsky. I believe his name was Bronstein. They changed their names. They made it against the law in Russia. You'd be executed immediately if you spoke out against the Jews. Now I want you to listen to what Lenin's saying. Anti-Semitism means spreading enmity towards the Jews. When the accursed Tsarist monarchy was living its last days, it tried to incite ignorant workers and peasants against the Jews. And just listen, it gets better. He sounds exactly like most Christians today. This is an antichrist state, you understand, when it became communist. But listen as he still says the same words John Hagee did. We're going to wipe out anti-Semitism. And after killing what many people estimate to be up near 100 million people in order to wipe out what he called anti-Semitism, to wipe out Christianity, to wipe out the church, just like Paul said in Thessalonians, of the Jews who both killed the Lord Jesus and their own prophets, and they please not God, and are contrary unto all men, forbidding us to speak the gospel. This was exactly what was going on in Russia. Communism. All right, let's go on here a little farther. He's saying the same thing most Christians are saying today. The Tsarist police, in alliance with the landowners and the capitalists, organized pogroms against the Jews, the hate of the workers and the peasants. The landowners and capitalists tried to divert against the Jews. In other countries, too, we often see the capitalists fomenting hatred against the Jews in order to blind the workers, to divert their attention from the real enemy of the working people, capital. Hatred towards the Jews persists only in those countries where slavery to the landowner and capitalists, abysmal ignorance among the workers and peasants. I hear Christians say that all the time. They say, well, you know, you're just ignorant, they say. It's hatred. And you listen to John Hagee talk about anyone who questions unbelieving Jews, and he'll just act, this is what they do. And then they tell you, these unbelieving Jews suffered so much. And there in Galatians, the Apostle Paul explains, he said, they'll zealously affect you. They're going to try to gain your affections, get you to feel sorry for them. So anyway, going on here. Only the most ignorant and downtrodden people can believe the lies and slander that are spread about the Jews. You go to any church, you go to any pastor, and they're going to tell you those exact words. I mean, just like they read it off the script of the communist, manifesto or something. And they're gonna act the same way. Among the Jews, there are working people, and they form the majority. They are our brothers who, like us, are oppressed by capital. Well, let's keep going here. They are our comrades in the struggle for socialism. There it is right there. Communism was founded by and formed by unbelieving Jews. Jesus Christ said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Your preacher won't tell you that because your preacher doesn't believe the Bible. Your preacher won't listen to the bewares found in the Word of God. But yeah, they helped form, or Moses Hess was the founder of modern day communism. He was a good friend of Karl Marx. He trained Karl Marx. Karl Marx was Jewish. Moses Hess was a Zionist Jew. Moses Hess came up with the idea of communism. And he was the one who said, religion is the opiate of the people. But he was a very religious man. He was a very devout religious man. He was more along the lines of what you'd call the Sadducees, He said that he didn't believe there ever was a Jesus Christ. He said, our young men and our people are the Christs of the world. And see, there you go. There's the spirit of Antichrist. But he talked about how that the unbelieving Jews need to infiltrate and work with the nations and do like the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes did. He was along the lines of the Sadducees. He didn't really believe. He said that Jesus Christ is us, we Jewish people. He said the same thing a lot of Christian Zionists do. He said we Jews are the seeds of Abraham. And he said we are to bring the blessings of Abraham to the world. He said that is not for Jesus Christ. He said that was for us. You talk to the average Christian Zionist today, you talk to John Hagee, he'll say the same thing as the communist.
From your heart. But hear me when I say this. You are not alone. Never again will you face the horrors of the past without the Christian brothers and sisters in America standing with you in an unbreakable bond. I have said it before and will say it again.
Now listen.
If a line has to be drawn, then draw the line around both Christians and Jews, because we are one and we are together, and we will work to snuff out the poison of anti-Semitism from the veins of the United States of America.
Listen, this Yahoo here may not like our Constitution. He may not like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom to believe. But I don't care what he thinks. But it's true, they are working day and night, just like they did in communist Russia, to make it against the law to expose the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes. Let me show you another fella. This guy here, Joseph Stalin, killed more people than probably any man in the history of the world, bar none. He was one of the most wicked and ungodly men, most vicious killers. His son-in-law killed tremendous amounts of people in the Ukraine. His son-in-law was again a very sadistic, very ungodly man. His son-in-law was a Jew, Kekanovich, and he was of the Kagan family, and he basically ran Stalin. But I want you to listen to this man. Tell me if he isn't saying the same thing that most preachers are saying today, and what John Hagee was saying.
People as January 12, 1931. Reply to an inquiry of the Jewish News Agency in the United States. Source: Works, Volume 13, 1930 to January 1934. Publisher: Foreign Languages Publishing House, Moscow, 1954. In answer to your inquiry, National and racial chauvinism is a vestige of the misanthropic customs characteristic of the period of cannibalism. Anti-Semitism, as an extreme form of racial chauvinism, is the most dangerous vestige of cannibalism. Anti-Semitism is of advantage to the exploiters as a lightning conductor that deflects the blows aimed by the working people at capitalism. Anti-Semitism is dangerous for the working people as being a false path that leads them off the right road and lands them in the jungle.
And we will work to snuff out the poison of anti-Semitism.
Hence communists, as consistent internationalists, cannot but be irreconcilable, sworn enemies of anti-Semitism. In the USSR,
communists, he said, we as communists are the sworn enemies of anti-Semitism. Really?
You are not alone. Never again will you face the horrors of the past without the Christian brothers and sisters in America standing with you in an unbreakable bond. I have said it before and will say it again. If a line has to be drawn, then draw the line around both Christians and Jews, because we are one and we are together, and we will work to snuff out the poison of anti-Semitism from the veins of the United States of America.
How do you snuff out free speech? That sounds like a snuff video where you kill people. We're going to snuff out? You listen to this man's words. You listen real close to this man right here. You listen to him. When he's using words like snuff out, and he says anti-Semitism, he'll later say, you know, anti-Semitism is from, he says, a bitter person. And anti-Semites are, they'll shut you down. They'll cast you out of their synagogues. These are the modern day Pharisees right here. Only they have snuck into the church, as Jude says, and they have infiltrated. They're the false teachers. Snuff out? Who talks like that? We're going to snuff out so-called anti-Semitism. Yeah, who talks like that? Here's the people that talk like that. Lenin. Now listen to what he has to say here. Stalin, 1931.
Antisemitism is punishable with the utmost severity of the law as a phenomenon deeply hostile to the Soviet system.
Anti-Semitism is punishable by the utmost of the law, and it's true. They would execute people without a trial. It was one of the harshest penalties of all, is to speak out against the Jewish people, to speak out against the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and the scribes, who were the ones who took over Russia, with the intention of wiping out Christianity, because they've always been the enemies of the gospel. Apostle Paul said of the Jews who both killed the Lord Jesus and their own prophets, and they please not God, and they're contrary unto all men, and they forbid us to speak the gospel. The forbidding of the spreading of the gospel, the forbidding of even building churches. But yet now they've gotten into the church, and we're paying for our own demise. But anyway, let's listen to what he has to say. He said, the utmost penalty, you in Russia, like I said, you'd be killed, you'd be executed. It was the worst crime in Russia, besides being a Christian. It was the worst crime was to speak out against the Jewish people. And I'm not talking about the people, the race. I'm talking about the rabbis, the system of Judaism, one thing and the other. But anyway, let's watch here.
Under USSR law, active anti-Semites are liable to the death penalty.
There you go. He said that. Snuff them out. The Lord told his disciples to go throughout Israel. He said, go only to the nation of Israel. And he said, I send you out as sheep among wolves. He said, you followers of me, you're the sheep, and the unbelieving Jews are the wolves. And he said, they're going to kill you, they're going to snuff you out.
To snuff out.
They're going to snuff you out. They're going to take you before the councils. I myself was in a court case here a couple years ago, and we'd taken in a young lady that had come from a very abusive situation, and I was fighting to keep her from going back to the memories and to the place she didn't want to go back to anyway. A very abusive situation, and I had members of another church, a sister church, that brought up some pretty strong accusations when I was in court. They said he should not even be running a ministry of helping young people because Mr. Woods is very anti-Semitic.
You are not alone. Never again. You are not before, and will say it again. If a line has to be drawn, then draw the line around both Christians and Jews, because we are one and we are together, and we will work to snuff out.
Anti-Semites are liable to the death penalty. J. Stalin.
Jesus said, when I send you into Israel, he said, they're going to hound you from city to city. He said, I only want you to preach the heavenly kingdom, meaning I don't want you to preach about earthly Israel. Jesus never came waving an Israeli flag. He didn't tell his disciples, go around telling everybody, if you speak out against the Sadducees, Pharisees, and the scribes, you tell those yahoos that I'm going to punish them. No, he punished Jerusalem for the way she treated the Christians. But the Lord said, they're going to hound you. They're going to throw you in prison. They're going to take you before the courts. They will kill you. And they killed Jesus Christ. But nonetheless.
January 12, 1931. First published in the newspaper Pravda, number 329, November 30th, 1936.
So, there you go. And, I don't care what price I pay personally. I really don't care. Our churches are so Judaized and so much a part of the Antichrist system. They've gotten into the churches. They've taught our Bible colleges and professors, and they teach this dispensationalism. And dispensationalism, the C.I. Scofield, and these dispensationalists, they have taken the Lord's church that he bought with his blood, his bride, and they've said it's only a parenthesis in time. They say, the church is just here for a little while on the earth. We're just filling in time until the Jews can take over the world. Samuel Untermeyer, a globalist, unbelieving Jew. C.I. Scofield, tremendous amount of money, befriended him because they love that idea. The Pharisees love this idea. The church is just not that important. Christ isn't even that important anymore to a lot of these. But anyway, dispensationalists, they use C.I. Scofield, Clarence Larkin. They divide up the scriptures, and they try to make it look like that everything in the Bible is about Israel instead of Christ's church.